Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our News Digest. We're going to be talking about some AI or artificial intelligence that has been used for the first time in a particular situation.
Technology improves, but humans' ability to get along with each other does not improve at the same pace.
That's
true.
So,
of course, we're going to use this stuff to blow each other up.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal of AI and technology and stuff like that. Unfortunately, maybe someday we'll learn to live with each other, but until that time, we're going to watch this kind of thing happen all the time. So let's find out what this is all about. AI has been used in war for the first time. Let's read the entire contents of our article now one time.
Earlier this year, the Israeli military took defensive action against Hamas in what has been referred to as the first artificial intelligence war. There have been numerous confrontations between Israel and Hamas, a Palestinian militant group that has been in control of the Gaza Strip since 2007. According to an Israeli officer, this event marked AI's large-scale debut in a military operation. The AI technology in question includes missiles that aim to defend against incoming rockets, as well as a system that can identify targets and perform accurate strikes on them. Between May 10th and 21st, Hamas fired over 4,000 rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Upon identifying incoming rockets from Hamas, Israel's AI-assisted missiles were able to intercept 90% of them before they could cause major damage. The AI recognized and accurately estimated the rockets' trajectories and precisely targeted the vast majority that were headed towards areas of significant population. Rockets that would land in uninhabited areas were ignored to reduce costs, something that is necessary when the cost of each defensive missile exceeds $50,000. Israel retaliated by conducting airstrikes of its own, which also used AI. These attacks utilized a vast amount of data gathered from satellites, among other sources, to guide missiles with pinpoint accuracy. In addition to allowing for more effective airstrikes, this use of AI was intended to reduce civilian casualties, supposedly making it more ethical. Israel has invested heavily in tech companies. It has been able to mobilize these companies and their expertise in various technological fields for a number of military projects. Exports of the resulting AI technology are an ambition of the Israeli government, and the country also aims to enter into collaborations with foreign companies. It may not be long before all wars are conducted using a formidable array of AI technology.
All right, let's talk about AI being used in war. And I think we all know that that's going to happen eventually. But now we have an example of the first usage of AI in actual war. Okay, this, of course, took place in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. And that's a good place to test this stuff out because I think they're going to be at war forever. Okay, they're always going to be fighting each other. So if you want to test out weapons or technology, that's the place to do it.
I actually think that AI technology has been used before in war, but we just weren't aware of it. We weren't told about it. Of course, Israel is trying to sell this technology to other countries so they can make some money. So they're publicizing it. So here we've got AI. Of course, it is short for artificial intelligence. So you need to know both of those. Sometimes writers will just put AI. They won't give you the full name here, artificial intelligence. So earlier this year, the Israeli is an adjective form describing people and things that are from the country of Israel. The Israeli military took defensive action against Hamas in what has been referred to as the first artificial intelligence war. So we've got Hamas here. It's an organization. They want to create a Palestinian state with strict Islamic law because they're Muslims. And they're actually in the area that's now controlled by Israel. So Hamas has for years tried to use rockets and suicide bombers to attack Israel as a way to get Israel to give them what they want or even to protect themselves. So here we've got Hamas. Remember what that is? It's a group of people. So they're using defensive action, though. If you take defensive action, it means you're doing something that's intended to protect you or something that you love or like against being attacked. The opposite of that would be offensive. So you could say the president ordered the military to take a strong defensive position against their enemy. So yeah, defensive means you're protecting yourself. Offensive or offensive means you're attacking someone else.
Right, of course. So when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, that was an offensive action. And then when the Americans were trying to protect themselves from the Japanese, then they were taking defensive action. So yes, Hamas was attacking Israel, so Israel had to take defensive action against Hamas. And that has been described, or it has been referred to, as the first artificial intelligence war. Okay? And the next sentence says, there have been numerous confrontations between Israel and Hamas, a Palestinian militant group that has been in control of the Gaza Strip since 2007. And I think they haven't held elections for many years either. So Hamas are extreme there, and they are a militant group, which means they're armed and they believe in fighting for what they want. And of course, I believe they probably don't want to recognize the government of Israel. Lots of countries in the Middle East don't recognize Israel. They don't think Israel should exist. And I believe Hamas is one of those people. So, of course, they are armed, they are militant, and, of course, the Gaza Strip is that piece of land that is along the Mediterranean Sea, kind of to the west of Israel.
Now, according to an Israeli officer here, meaning he is someone who is in the military officer, this event marked AI's large-scale debut in a military operation. Debut is a word we use to talk about the first public appearance of something. Usually we're talking about some sort of entertainer, maybe a singer or actor, but it could also refer to a product that appears on the market for the first time. So a debut. The reason why it's weird in its pronunciation, guys, and it's not debut, is because it's French. So you pronounce it debut. So this was the first time, at least, that AI was used in a large-scale way. Large-scale meaning a big way. It wasn't just a small use of AI. It was a big use of AI in a military operation.
Okay, the next sentence in the next paragraph says, the AI technology in question, or the AI technology that we just mentioned above, includes missiles that aim to defend against incoming rockets, as well as a system that can identify targets and perform accurate strikes on them. So we did talk about AI, and if we want to be more specific, then we use this phrase, in question. Well, the AI technology in question, or in detail, includes missiles that aim to defend against incoming rockets. So they're taking a defensive position there, and the rockets are incoming, which means they're approaching you, they're going to blow up, and you might get hurt. And they also have a system that can pick out the targets. It can identify the targets and then perform accurate strikes on them. Yes, this is a target. There's probably a leader there, or there's probably a bunch of weapons there. So that's a target. You can attack that, and then the attack will be very accurate.
I wanted to mention when you use in question like they are here, it just means the things or the people that you're actually discussing. It's kind of the topic being discussed. You'll hear it on legal shows or police dramas. They'll say, where were you during the evening in question? The evening we're talking about, where were you? We want to find out if you were anywhere near the site of the crime or the scene of the crime. So in question is kind of strange, but it just means it's what you're actually discussing at that moment. You could also say the specific AI technology includes missiles that aim, but here we're using in question. It's a good thing to learn because you might think it means something's not completely understood. You're still asking questions. No, it just means the subject being discussed. So yeah, they were able to identify targets and perform accurate strikes on them. So we're going to talk more about this and how it worked. But first, guys, we're going to take a few minutes and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要带大家来看一篇新闻摘要，就是有关于以色列发起全球首场 AI 战争的这个主题。那么我们就来看一下到底是什么样一个情况。其实在文章的第一段第二句就有提到，以色列他跟自从2007年来控制加萨走廊的这个巴勒斯坦激进组织 Hamas 就有很多次的冲突。在这句话我们可能要特别注意一下，它是带着一个同位语以及限定用法关系子句的句子。那么在句子当中，我们看到中间左右有一个 Hamas， 也就是这个激进组织，逗点之后的是它的同位语 A Palestinian Militant Group， 这是先行词。那么先行词后面带着是一个后面的 that 到句尾的限定用法的关系子句，所以这个巴勒斯坦的激进组织 Hamas 其实它从2007年来就一直控制着整个加萨走廊。那么到底这个所谓的 AI 人工智慧是什么样的一个状况呢？在第二段第一句我们来特别注意一下，这个讨论中的这种所谓的 AI 智能技术其实有两个主题，它包含的是第一个就是所谓的飞弹，第二呢则是一个系统。在第二段第一句当中，我们看一下句子大概中间前面的地方，在 include 这个动词之后包含了第一个受词 missiles， 就是所谓的飞弹。飞弹之后带了一个限定用法的关系子句，从 that 一直到后面 rockets 这个地方。那么这样子的一个飞弹，看关系子句当中，它主要的目的是用来防御来袭火箭的这种飞弹。那么第二包含了另外一个所谓的受词，就是 a system。 那么这两个受词当中我们看到的是 as well as 这个连接词片语，也就是说这个所谓的 AI 智慧就是 missiles and a system。 那这个系统就是后面的 that 一直到句尾的地方。这系统什么系统呢？就是可以辨识目标，而且对执行准确度非常高，可以攻击100%的，几乎是100%的这种系统。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, so today we're going to continue talking about AI being used in war for the first time. It took place in the Middle East. So Hamas in the Gaza Strip fired a bunch of missiles toward Israel, and Israel was able to use this technology to defend itself. And then it was also able to fire missiles and identify targets and perform accurate strikes on those targets. So going back to May, the month of May, between May 10th and May 21st, Hamas fired over 4,000 rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israel. So that's where Hamas is active there on the Gaza Strip there, and they fired the rockets from there and sent them toward Israel. We don't like you guys. We don't want you to be here. You're the enemy, so we're going to fire rockets at you. And upon identifying incoming rockets from Hamas, Israel's AI-assisted missiles were able to intercept 90% of them before they could cause major damage. So yes, indeed, they had the AI system there, which identified the missiles. So upon identifying them, when they identified them, the moment they identified them, then they were able to fire back with AI-assisted missiles, and they could intercept 90% of those missiles. So here we've got the word intercept, which means basically they contact those missiles and they stop them. They blow them out of the sky.
Yeah, maybe you're passing notes with your friend in class and you don't want your teacher to see. You don't want her to intercept your note that you're passing back and forth. You need to be quite clever, though, to fool your teacher. Teachers are smart. So, yeah, they were able to intercept 90% of them before they could cause major damage. That's really quite a feat. It's quite a success they had. Now, the AI recognized and accurately estimated the rocket's trajectories. You can use rockets or missiles, either or. It's kind of a nice synonym. So sometimes you'll see us say rockets. Sometimes the writer will write missiles. They're both the same sort of thing. So a trajectory, it's kind of hard to say trajectory. Trajectory is just the path that something is taking as it flies into the air. It doesn't have to be a rocket or a missile. Maybe you throw something at your younger brother and you watch I don't know what you're throwing at them, the trajectory of whatever you've thrown at someone. So here it just means the path that it took. And the AI was so smart, it precisely targeted the vast majority, almost all of them, that were headed towards areas of significant population. Yeah, Hamas doesn't care if they kill civilians or just normal people or people in the military. They just want to kill people to make a statement. So if you're heading towards, if a rocket's going towards areas of a lot of population, you're going to kill a lot of innocent people.
Exactly. So, indeed, they had to target those missiles and they had to determine their trajectory. They had to figure out where those missiles were going, and then they could figure out how to intercept those missiles in midair and stop them before they hit their targets. Now, rockets that would land in uninhabited areas were ignored to reduce costs. Something that is necessary when the cost of each defensive missile exceeds $50,000. So uninhabited means they're areas where people aren't living, so they just ignored those rockets. Just let them blow up in the desert. They're not going to hurt anybody. Let's focus on the ones that are going to hurt people. And indeed, they need to save money that way because each defensive missile exceeds $50,000. To exceed just means to go beyond something. In other words, each missile costs more than $50,000. That's a lot of money for just one missile.
That's right. So maybe you really love donuts, but you've told yourself you don't want to exceed 2 donuts a day. You don't want to eat more than 2 a day. So these missiles are quite expensive. $50,000, more than $50,000. So Israel retaliated by conducting airstrikes of its own, which also used AI. So if you retaliate, you do something to get back at somebody or something that has hurt you. So you're not the one to first hurt someone, but then you make an attack back on someone who has assaulted or attacked you, to get back at them, to retaliate. It doesn't mean you retaliate necessarily by throwing up a missile or launching a rocket. You can retaliate by doing other things. But you're getting back at someone who has attacked you or assaulted you. So they did some of their own airstrikes, and they also used AI for that.
And indeed they did, and these attacks utilized a vast amount of data gathered from satellites, among other sources, to guide missiles with pinpoint accuracy. So I guess that's where the AI comes in there. They had a lot of information that was gathered from satellites, a lot of data that was gathered from, or I should say data were gathered from satellites. So they had all that information and they fed it into the computer, and the computer determined the trajectory of the missiles based on that data. And yes, they guided the missiles with pinpoint accuracy. Accuracy is how close to the target you are. Accuracy can refer to just how correct something is. And pinpoint means it's extremely accurate. It can hit the point of a pin when fired from 1,000 miles away. That is really accurate. I don't think they would hit that accurately, but basically close enough.
It's pretty accurate. Pinpoint. Anything that is has pinpoint accuracy is very accurate. Now, in addition to allowing for more effective airstrikes, this use of AI was intended, or its purpose was, to reduce civilian casualties. Casualty is a word we use when someone is hurt or killed in either an accident or war. You'll often see this word used in the news and newspapers, or if you're listening to news on your TV, you'll listen to how many casualties. There were no casualties after the hurricane hit or after the typhoon hit Taiwan. There were no reported casualties or casualties reported. So, yeah, they wanted to reduce civilian casualties, and that was supposedly going to make it more ethical or more moral than if they had just, let just civilians die by, the handful with these rockets. So, yeah, it's much better if you can avoid killing innocent people. In a war, usually countries are trying to kill each other's soldiers. And that's fair because they've been trained for battle. They've been trained for war. But if you kill innocent people, that's not fair and it's unethical. It's immoral.
Right, and it says supposedly making it more ethical. So yes, basically attacking somebody using violence isn't really ethical, but you have to do it. You have to hit them back or they're going to think it's easy to attack you. So indeed, you have to retaliate and it's more ethical. It's less violent if you don't hit the women and the children. Okay, now here in the final paragraph it says, Israel has invested heavily in tech companies. So Israel, of course, is advanced in a lot of areas of technology, and Israel has invested a lot of money in high-tech companies, and it has been able to mobilize these companies and their expertise in various technological fields for a number of military projects. So here we've got the word mobilize. That just means you put it into action, you prepare, you organize everything, and as I said, you put it into action.
Yeah, if you mobilize, you're also encouraging people to support something in kind of an active way. You'll often see the phrase, we want to mobilize public opinion. If your government wants the citizens to believe a certain way, they'll often mobilize public opinion to believe whatever they're trying to sell. So, yeah, they've been able to mobilize these companies and their expertise in various technological fields. They've got a number of military projects they're working on. Now, exports of the resulting AI technology are an ambition of the Israeli government. I mentioned this before. They want to sell that technology, and the country also aims to enter into collaborations or partnerships with foreign companies, maybe to increase their abilities in AI. It may not be long before all wars are conducted using a formidable array of AI technology. Formidable just means very powerful, impressive. Sometimes it means frightening, depending on what you're talking about. There are two pronunciations for this word, formidable or formidable. They're both acceptable. You can pick the one you want. I say formidable. Array is another word for arrange, right? An array of things is a group of things that has a lot of different variety in it. So an array. If you go to the market in the morning, I love to go to the flower market. There's an array of dazzling and beautiful flowers to choose from.
Yep, a variety of AI technology. So we're going to see this more and more in the future. And yes, indeed, nothing will stop people from trying to blow each other up in whichever way they can. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
那么当时在5月10号到21号的期间呢，哈马斯就从加萨走廊向以色列发射了超过4000枚的飞弹。那么当时以色列人工智慧的辅助的飞弹一辨识到来自哈马斯来袭的飞弹之后，它就能够在进攻飞弹造成破坏之前至少拦截超过 90%， 而且这种 AI 的人工智慧呢，认出而且精准的估算飞弹的轨迹，而且会瞄准绝大部分飞往人口显著地区的飞弹。那么如果是朝着比较没有人居住的地方呢，原则上飞弹就会让它着陆，就会被忽略。为什么？ 因为在以色列，他们每一枚防御飞弹的成本都超过5万美元，这成本很高，所以这样子的一个动作是需要的。我们在第二段的这个第5句的地方，同样也看到了限定用法的关系子句有2句。第一句出现在前面主词的 rockets， 限定用法关系子句从后面的 that 一直到 areas。那么另外一个限定用法关系子句则是在破折号之后 something 后面带着 that 到句尾的地方。好，那么以色列也不是一直被人家打哦，他也会透过自己的空袭来作为一个报复。但是这个空袭呢，也是使用 AI 人工智慧，而且这一些攻击啊，是利用从卫星还有其他的资料来源的收集的大量的数据，精准的来引导飞弹。我们同样看一下这一段的第7句的地方，也有一个关系子句限定用法，但是是简化的。我们看一下先行词是 a vast amount of data。那么这样子大量的资料是从哪里收集来的呢？先把后面 gathered 左括号，右括号在后面第2个逗点 sources 的地方。那么省略的是关系词 that 跟后面的 be 动词用过去式哦，用 were。好，那么这样子的做法呢，除了能够让空袭更有效率，这种 AI 的人工使用也可以减少一般人民的伤亡，所以比较合乎道德。同样在这一段的最后一句话当中出现了一个分词构句，这一段第2段的第8句最后一句，我们看到句子当中第一个动词其实是 was intended to reduce， 那么第2个动词就出现在逗点之后有一个 making， 现在看到它是动词 ing 是现在分词，但其实还原的话呢，应该是 and to make it more ethical。 也就是说，这样子 AI 人工智慧的使用比较能够第一减少平民伤亡，第2也合乎道德，所以把连接词 and 删掉之后，后面的使得道德的这个 make 动词直接变成动词 ing。 那当然以色列对于这种科技公司进行了很多的投资，也希望能够跟全世界的其他的公司一起展开合作。如果以后真的有战争发生，至少能够减少平民的伤亡，也可以让战争合乎道德，这可能也是一件好事情。以上是我们今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.